you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
all in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. The Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy.
The Stanley Cup winning Colorado Avalanche. And after 22 years, Raymond Moore
The sickest NHL podcast. It's gonna be sick.
And that camera's off again. My apologies. There's my great mug there, Pierre, so you can look at my Irish face. Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy here on the Eye Test on the Sick Podcast Network on another on-campus Friday as we wind down the month of September and really get college hockey going into gear. And before we talk a little bit about women's hockey, because that has launched already, their season has begun. I just want to tell everybody we got a great guest lined up. He'll be joining us shortly, probably within the next 10 minutes, 10 to 12 minutes. And that is the legendary and the 2023 Lester Patrick Award winner, Joe Bertagna, joining us. He was a longtime commissioner of the ECAC, longtime commissioner of the Hockey East, and also was a goalie at Harvard University, was a goalie in my hometown, Arlington, Massachusetts, for the great Ed Burns at Arlington High School. The resume goes on and on. We'll get into what he's doing now, too. Of course, he is involved with the Friendship 4, which is in Belfast at the end of November, that we've told you Pierre and I will be broadcasting live from. So we'll definitely be talking about that, talk about Joe's career, and get his take on the state of college hockey today. But before we get to that, Pierre, let's talk about some women's hockey, because you were just telling me the season is already here.
It started last night in State College, Pennsylvania. The Northeastern Lady Huskies went down to Penn State and won 3-1. Player to watch there, Skylar Irving. She's really good.
Okay.
Nick Carpentino and Lindsey Berman are the coaches at Northeastern, and Skylar Irving is somebody to watch. Today, St. Lawrence was in North Andover, Massachusetts. They beat Merrimack 3-0, and the player to watch there is Abby Hustler. I watched her last year in the ECAC playoffs. She's outstanding. She had a 2-point game for Chris Wells' skating Saints, I should say, up at Merrimack at North Andover. And then number 1 Ohio State opens up at Bemidji tonight. Lindenwood's at number 2 Wisconsin. Number 3 Minnesota plays at number 9 UConn. Number 4 Colgate is at Mercyhurst. Number 5 Clarkson's at St. Michael's. And number 10 Quinnipiac at Maine. Manitoba is at number 11 St. Cloud State. Mm-hmm. And so women's hockey is on, and it started last night, and it finished up. It'll finish up late tonight.
Pierre, question, and forgive me for not knowing, did they always start this early, or is this new this year?
You know what? It's a good question, because I've been so involved with the National Hockey League, I really wasn't paying attention to it. And, you know, it's funny. We're talking about starting early. The NHL used to start a lot earlier.
Oh, yeah.
And part of why they're not is because they know they can't beat high school, college, and pro football. So they're trying to start a little later to give themselves more of an opportunity to get better gates. And it's the same thing for the American League and the East Coast Hockey League. And men's college hockey, the exhibition games start next weekend. So the women are already into their regular season starting last night, and the men don't start for another 2 weeks.
Wow. It's great, but I love it. Hockey is back, and I'm excited. And Pierre, let's get to a little NHL before we switch back to college with Joe. And news coming out that Drew Doughty, we spoke about this at the end of the show yesterday, they're terming him month to month with a fractured ankle. Now, we spoke a little yesterday about, you know, what this might mean for the Kings. Now that we know it's a month-to-month situation, Pierre. Now, I like the way they term that there, because it leaves a lot of things open-ended, so that's good. But being a GM and an assistant GM and a coach and knowing what goes on behind the scenes, do you feel like they might have a more sharper target date?
Yeah, they kind of know.
That's what I figured.
They kind of know. You know, the doctors want to be smart too. They want to make sure that they don't rush the player back in the team. This is an amazing asset for the organization. I mean, think about how valuable Drew has been throughout his entire career there. You're talking about a 17-year career. I mean, and he's still got a lot of game left. You and I both watched that, by the way. Tanner Pearson, there's nothing wrong on that play. That's just an unfortunate situation. Those guys are buddies.
Oh, longtime buddies, man. They won Stanley Cups together. Like you said, they'll walk forever together.
Winning Laura in LA, that was not anything dirty.
No, it was bad luck.
Because I had a couple calls saying, "Oh, what's Pearson doing there?" I'll tell you what he's doing.
He's doing what he's supposed to do.
The puck.
He's running down the puck.
What's he supposed to do?
Yeah. And I actually think, Pierre, there was a close-up. I'll try and find it and send it to you after the podcast. But there was a close-up of his face, too, where he was trying to pay attention to the positioning of Doughty, I think, to know where he was and not get tangled up, not make it end up the way it did. So, I don't blame any of that on Pearson. It's just bad luck. And that's why I said you looked at Hiller's face and he's just like, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah,
Way
there's
it
nothing
goes.
he could have done, and nobody feels worse than him, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
He's an honorable guy, and he cares. No veteran player, no player wants to hurt another player.
No.
But no veteran player wants to see a star, a potential Hall of Famer down the road get injured in a preseason game. Nobody wants to see that.
And staying on the same theme of nobody's really trying to hurt anybody, and it's just bad luck, Pierre. I spoke to you this morning. I said, I mean, man, the Leafs, they just have bad luck. I mean, you look at what happened with Robinson and Nylander last night, and, he's just trying to give him the old slingshot. If everyone hasn't seen it go up, you can find on YouTube and all your social media right now. Just type in William Nylander or Nick Robinson, it will come up. And, Nylander goes down, leaves the game. Thankfully, it appears he's okay. But you were telling me that some people are kind of getting all over Robinson for this.
Yeah, Robertson's definitely getting punched around pretty good, which is grossly unfair. And I would hope that at some point, whether it's Craig Berube or upper management, steps in and says, that's a play that a lot of times gets celebrated by announcers.
Yes.
Look at how heady he is. He's trying to push this guy back into the back check. But unfortunately, something bad happened last night. Like everybody, I'm going to say this straight from the start. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. They are.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay.
They are.
Make it personal. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion.
As long as it's not personal.
As long as it's not everybody's entitled. So I don't fault the people that are saying, well, what's he doing there? It's an exhibition. I get it. Maybe I'll take the other side and say he's a young kid who wants to show the coach that he's thinking about the game.
On a one-year deal, too.
Yeah. He wants to be an everyday player in the lineup.
Yeah.
So, everybody's going to have their own opinion, which is fine. But I just don't think the kid should be beat up for this. I just don't. And I bet you Nylander probably isn't beating him up either.
Yeah. Pierre, and it's another thing that came to mind when I was thinking about it today, driving around, running some errands. And I'm thinking about kind of the balance, Pierre, that you have to find between playing your all, trying to impress the coaches, but at the same time realizing it's preseason and pacing yourself. Can you really do that? Unless you're a superstar, Pierre, I don't think you can go less than 100% because you're not doing your job. You're there to make a team. You're there to impress the coaches, like you said. So that's why I find it unfair. There's a lot of people in the last few days talking about injuries and talking about plays like that. Why would he do that in the preseason? He doesn't need to go all out. Well, I beg to differ. Well,
young guys have to go all out until they've cemented a position. Veteran guys don't. It's part of the problem with preseason, and that's why.
Right.
And I mean, no disrespect meant to the coaches or the players that are involved in these games, but we've seen some really bad games. I remember once going to pre-scout. I'll tell you the teams right now: New Jersey and Washington. I was working in Pittsburgh, and the game was in Richmond, Virginia. Okay, it was a neutral site game. I went to the game. They wanted me to go on pre-scout because we had Jersey and Washington to start the year, and it was near the end of preseason. And at the end of it, and there were no computers then, so I wrote my report and then I faxed it in.
Yeah.
And then at the top of it, I go, I can't believe I got paid to do this because this was an awful exercise. It was terrible. And Badger Bob called me up at the hotel where I was staying in Crystal City, Virginia, right by the Pentagon. Badger called me that night and he says, I like the honesty in your report, but was anything going on? And I said, no, nothing was going on. Nothing was going on. So there have been bad preseason games for a long time, but I've seen more bad preseason games this year than probably I've seen in a long time.
You never really think about that, eh, Pierre? That's tough for a scout when a game really is brutal like that. Like, what's he supposed to write?
Well, no, just be honest. It's like what we try to do on the eye test. And if you don't see something, just like, I didn't see it, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Scotty used to do this all the time. I think I told you. He'd bring the guys to the center of the ice after practice, and he'd say, Murphy, who are our next 5 opponents? and if you didn't know, he'd go to the next guy. And the guy might try to fudge it, and Scotty, no, you got that wrong. And then he'd always say, guys, you make a living in this league. You need to know who you're going to be working against. And so if you don't know it, just say, you know what, coach, I don't know it. But I guarantee you the next time you'll know it.
Yeah.
And so, it's really important to do that. And when you're scouting, sometimes you go to games like that, you just got to say it. It was a bad game, and I didn't take anything out of this.
Yeah, it's interesting to bring that up because I remember talking to some players, Pierre, earlier on in my reporting career, asking them about that, saying, hey, Do you guys pay attention to the schedule? And the common theme I got, some guys would try and be like, no, I don't, they do. But the common theme I got, and Claude Julien really emphasized this, was the 5-game thing. We go 5 games at a time, and then we'll kind of see where we're at. What do we need to do to correct the process? And I found that interesting. And I just remember bumping into Julien, I think it was last year, and saying, you still going to use that if you coach again? And he goes, I'll use it to the day I die. So that's
he's an assistant coach right now in St. Louis.
Yep.
So I'm sure he's
implementing that. Yeah,
too, because he's got a little bit more experience than the guys that he's working with.
Right.
I'm sure he's probably got a little.
But did you guys have a kind of a breakdown like that when you were with Pittsburgh?
Well, we did 5 games in terms of knowing the schedule, but we did 10-game segments. So we would do 10-game segments on rating the players, and each coach was usually responsible for 5 to 7 players.
Right.
And so your responsibility was to have video, both positive and negative on the player, statistics in terms of plus, minus, chances for, chances against, shots for, shots against, penalties, power play opportunities if they were on a power play. So it was your job to have a lot of minutia for the player. And usually you'd give the player a rating.
Yeah.
At the end, everybody in the room would give the player a rating, and then you just discuss it with the player.
Okay.
So we used to go 1 to 5.
Uh-huh.
1 was the best, 5 was the worst.
Okay.
You didn't want to be 3-5 to 5. You didn't want to be that guy.
Right.
That's a bad 10-game segment. And then you'd get called into the boss's office.
Oh boy. Well, we'll give, I'm sure, a guy who I don't know, maybe he's called someone in the office. Maybe he's been called in the office himself, but I don't see that. Joe's just too nice a guy. The legendary Joe Bertagna joining us here on an on-campus Friday on the Eye Test and the SIT Podcast Network. Joe, how you doing?
Good. How are you guys?
We're great. Good to see you.
I caught some of that preseason talk. Pierre, remember rookie games? When I was
played a bunch of them. I remember.
I'll tell you, I was a goalie coach back in the mid-'80s with the Bruins, and they would play the Hartford Whalers rookies at Avon Old Farms because that's was the training facility for the Whalers. And other than meeting Gordie Howe in the on the stationary bike, which was a highlight, those rookie games were one fight after another. And every college kid wanted to show he could fight. So if somebody looked cross-eyed at him, they'd drop the gloves, and it would take about 4 hours to play a game. But they were horrible.
Joseph, hey, Jimmy, I'm telling you, Joseph's spot on. I remember playing in a Jersey-Philly rookie game. I'm going to say it took 4.5 hours to play. You couldn't be more right. And back then, Philly had guys like the late Peter Zezel, Rick Tocchet, Dave Brown, Darryl Stanley, It was messy. It was pretty messy.
That's great. Well, Joe, off the top, we just want to talk right away because we're excited to be part of it as well, about the Friendship 4. And I know you've become an integral part of that. And just talk to us about what it means to you to be part of this venture.
It's one of the best things I've been involved with. I got into college hockey because I was a player and a coach, but after 38 years as a commissioner, you realize you're a marketing guy, you're a branding guy. Mm-hmm. And, I knew that was part of the gig, but I was always more comfortable with what we did inside the glass than outside the glass. And the selling of the game would probably led to my downfall to leave in the last job I had. But I think the Friendship 4 is exactly what we should be doing. And it's such a departure from the NIL money and all the other stuff going on in college sports.
Yep.
Guys get over there for a week. They go into the classrooms. They meet kids from Belfast. They learn the culture and this unbelievable history in Belfast, both with the Troubles and with the Titanic having been built there. I love the T-shirts you'll see around the Titanic Museum. They say, "It was okay when it left here." So, they get that immersion. And then when you get to Thursday, Thanksgiving, American Thanksgiving, the coaches are trying to keep their eyes on, all right, these are real games, all right? So they don't go over there to play friendlies. And the hockey's been great. The building is terrific. It's a first-class building. And the organizers are pretty clever because they now have had a number of players go through there who they've signed to play for the Belfast Giants. Wow. So, some kid sees the rink, sees the town. You can get your master's degree at Ulster University or LaSalle, and you say, you know what? If my choice at home is East Coast League versus playing in Europe, getting a degree and living in a world-class city like this, why wouldn't I come to Belfast? So, it'll be my 16th trip when I go this year at Thanksgiving, and
oh my gosh,
I don't miss the dry turkey and bad U.S. football immersed in over here. And Ralph Cox used to rent the second floor of a pub over there and get some Irish music, and we have a ball. So I hope we can do that again this year.
That sounds like a plan to me, Pierre.
We're definitely going to be hanging out with Joseph. I had the privilege of being at your press conference the other day at the State House in Massachusetts, just to back your point up. I was blown away by the energy in that room, Joe. And you've seen it right from the start. You're a day oneer. What got the Irish so involved in hockey?
Well, you met Robert Fitzpatrick, I'm sure, and he's a force of nature. And as he will admit, this is not just they have their own benefits to get out of this because, as they made the point, there's only one hockey rink, dedicated hockey rink in all of Ireland, and that doesn't count the arena they play in. But they're very close to building another rink, and part of that is from the exposure that we gave the city council and the people over there, and the number of fans that come over and go to the restaurants, go to the hotels. So, Robert's a big thinker. He wanted to get the Bruins over there, and he did in 2010.
I remember that. Yep.
The Giants went up 1-0. I think it ended up 5-1 or 6-1. But I don't know if it was the year they won the cup. It might have been.
It was because they went to Prague right after that.
2011. You're spot on.
Yeah.
And so they've had now, this is the 25th season coming up of Giants hockey. They've won all sorts of trophies. And I don't think they said this at the press conference, but I learned that if you said your father played Irish football or Gaelic football or played you could tell what denomination you were from what game they played.
Yeah.
But there was no history with ice hockey. So it was an activity that brought people together. And so when people go into the Odyssey, the arena, they can't wear their colors, the Catholic Protestant colors. They have to wear neutral colors or wear the teal of the Belfast Giants. And it's one of the few activities that actually helped bring people together. And then on top of that, the Giants have been very successful, and this tournament has been very successful. So it's been a great win-win.
Yeah, Jimmy, just before you go to ask Joe another question, I just want to back Joe up on that because I had breakfast with Robert Fitzpatrick and Stevie Thornton and Martin McDowell the next day after Joe had his press conference. And you should, at 7:30 in the morning, these guys were gunned up about hockey.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, wow, this is really cool. Like, these guys care. They're in a non-traditional hockey market. So the only piece of advice I gave them, I said, copy what the Dallas Stars did when they moved from Minnesota in terms of building rinks. They were, without a doubt, the force that created all these non-traditional expansion areas and the growth of hockey. What the Dallas Stars did was unbelievable down there.
That's the challenge they have, because with the success of the Giants and to a lesser extent our event, people are clamoring for tickets. They've created fans. They've created real hockey fans. But now they want to translate that into hockey players. And with only that single rink, it's tough to get the young kids to start to skate, play hockey. They've got to go travel quite a ways to play games. And this will help, piece by piece. And they'll grow the participant level of the sport as they've grown the spectator level.
It's great. It's a valid point. I was recently at a party, I think last month, and I met a family member's friend was from Ireland, but I think down from Cork. And she said she became a hockey fan just because of the Friendship Four and the Belfast Giants.
No, that's
what
we
she was
want.
talking about how it's going,
The phenomenon
Go ahead, Joe.
I was going to say, one of the phenomena that it's great to watch is if a team goes into a school, that school creates posters and signage, and they go cheer for that team. So particularly in the early game, you'll see sections of school children in their school uniforms with signs for whatever school visited them. And
awesome.
And so you're getting 4,000 or 5,000 fans in each game, and the decibel level of the school children cheering. And another thing that's smart by the Giants is they create hockey fans out of these kids whose first game might be the Friendship Four. What do? They go home and tell mom and dad they want to go to a Giants game, and that's
awesome.
Is a benefit.
Goes from there. That's great.
No, agreed.
Joe, I know you're still busy in the game besides the Friendship Four, and you're telling me that you're part of the media director for both the American Hockey Coaches Association, the Hockey Commissioners Association. What are you doing for them these days?
So I'm going back to my roots. I started out as a sports information director at Harvard, where I had played, and this is the first winter in 42 years I'm not running a league.
Hold on, you keep talking. I'm going to get something here.
And 38 years of college, 4 years of the Eastern Hockey League, Junior League, and so no league this year. But I'll be writing the press releases. I'll be doing the players of the month. I'll be the busiest at the end of the year when we get the All-Americans and the Coach of the Year and the goalie, the Richter Award, and all those things. So I've got
Great
a lot
stuff.
of open Saturday nights. I can be a free agent and go around, and she'll make me the best offer to come down and watch a game somewhere.
Perfect.
Jimmy,
What do we got, Pierre? What do we got?
In the 1980s, when I used to work hockey camps with Joe Bertagna, I knew he was a really smart guy. He went to Harvard, was a goalie, was a SID. I also can tell you he's a very gifted writer. This is Joe's book, and it's all about the Friendship Four.
Great.
And I'm telling you, I've been fortunate enough to peruse the book.
Yeah,
Joe, this is awesome work.
Thank you. It's not just a hockey book, as you probably can see. Each chapter has a theme. It's either education, opportunity, friendship. The summaries of that particular year's games are in there, but we're trying to pass along the messages. It was, as Robert said, it's the calling card for the event. If somebody wants to know what's this about, give them the book, and they'll come out at the other end knowing what it's about. And they've been great to me because they keep giving me work to do. And I'm going to edit a book on the Belfast Giants, 25 years. They've got some local people writing it, and I'm going to lay it out and edit it, and it'll keep me off the streets for a few more weeks. So that's
nice.
The
I
title
never knew you were such a writer, Joe. I apologize.
No, Jimmy, the title of the book is Ring the Bell, and it's the story of the Friendship Four. And what Joe said is spot on. It's about stories of life. It's
Urge everybody to check it out. Yeah,
really
and that's what that tournament's about.
Joe, you're one of the only hockey players I know that could put their synapses together.
Well, my last book was a memoir that I entitled Late in the Third, because that's where I think I am. I'm hoping for a long overtime.
No. You're at worst, you're second intermission. That's all. There we go. Anyhow, Joe, speaking of the college hockey season, as we were just saying, the women's season just got underway. We were talking about that. And I just want to get your take, Joe, on how much you've enjoyed watching the women's game grow, both college-wise and now obviously a pro league as well.
Yeah, in 1977, Bill Cleary asked me if I would coach the first women's team at Harvard. I had been the JV coach with Kevin Hampy, a buddy of mine. We co-coached a team. And so I said yes. I had a $500 budget. I had 5 women who'd worn hockey equipment before. The rest were figure skaters or just athletes. You'll get a kick out of this. The first goalie we had, her last name was Worsley, so you knew what her nickname was going to be.
The Gumper.
So I coached 1 year as a club team, 1 year as a varsity, and then handed it off. And so I do have that perspective of having seen what it was like in those days, how it grew. The 98 Olympic team winning gold was maybe not as completely the impact the 80 team had on young boys playing hockey, but it's right up there with young girls. That on the Olympic stage, and we've had other successes. I live in Gloucester, Mass. Ben Smith and Jack Parker live in town. They're in the wealthy part of town. I'm in the poor part of town. But Ben was
the humble part.
Yeah. I'm before you go over the bridge. A lot of them leave the bridge. But it really has come a long way. And I stayed in. I was fortunate enough to make the presentations to both the ECAC when I was there and Hockey East when I was there that started their respective leagues. And I like to say these things were going to happen anyway, but maybe because I was there, they happened a little more quickly because I was an advocate and I could kind of play an inside game. Same with the women's Beanpot tournament. We moved it into the Boston Garden last year and had almost 11,000 people. And I coached in the first one at Matthews Arena in 1979. And that has come a long way to see all those people.
Oh, last year was unreal.
Yeah, it really is. And the quality of the game, I mean, it's unbelievable. And I always laugh when they talk about no checking, and then you watch a U.S.-Canada game. And maybe those aren't checks, but there's a lot of contact. And I hope they don't go that direction. I know there's some fans of the women's game that would like to increase the contact, but just because the men do it doesn't mean you have to copy it. They've got a beautiful game, and allow that angling, allow the contact they already have. It's a better game, I think.
Well, I'm going to take a line out of NASCAR racing. If you're not rubbing, you're not racing. So I think all the women need to do is just rub. They don't need to smack. If you rub a person out, it's good. And I'll tell you one thing. I've done every single Olympics since 2002 on the women and the men's side, and the women's game from 2002 to 2018. It's crazy the way it's evolved. And probably the best one I've seen. 2002 was great because of the drama, because of what Joe alluded to in 1998, Nagano with the Americans winning. The 2010 game in Vancouver was crazy good.
That the one where they hit the post with the empty net?
Yeah, no, that was 2014 in Sochi.
Okay.
That was 2014 in Sochi. But the 2010 game, that was a coming out party for Marie-Philippe Poulin.
Oh.
I've never seen a woman ever until that time shoot the puck the way she did.
Oh, yeah.
And now you see, I go to the rinks all the time. On Sunday, I was up in Bedford, Mass, watching the women's game. And you watch all these young ladies shoot the puck now, Joe and Jimmy. It's scary.
It's unreal. It's unreal. But
Poulin,
go ahead.
Poulin played for BU, so I got to see some of these Olympians on their way up. And my favorite player, I say this, in 23 years of Hockey East, is Alina Mueller, who played at Northeastern, was on the Swiss national team, and now she's on the Boston. I guess they're the Boston Fleet.
The Boston Fleet. That's right.
But she was just a classy player, and I had to hand her an MVP award after a tournament game. And she couldn't shake my hand because she had broken her thumb in overtime and scored the winning goal with a broken thumb. And I went to give her the trophy, and her hand was purple. And just, a great throwback hockey player. And I'm glad she's still playing in Boston. I get a chance to see her play.
Hey, Jimmy, her brother was a pretty good player. First-round pick of the San Jose Sharks, Mirko Mueller.
Oh, yeah.
That was her brother.
Guys, just going back to the physicality, too. I mean, Pierre, I remember a few times during last season where you and I both agreed that it was at a perfect level. We were a little surprised that it was even as physical as it was. There were times early in that season. So I think they've got a good blend going right now. I mean, I like the way it's going.
No, I do, too. I had the chance to do the ECAC Women's Final Four, and I thought the quality of play. You watch Izzy Daniel play for Cornell, or you watch Daniel Serdachny play for Colgate. You watch Abby Hustler play for St. Lawrence. You watch Haley Wynn play for Clarkson. I mean, all these women are so good now. Joe, it blows me away how good they are. And I think it's so good. You know what, Jimmy, I'm going to let you know a little secret. Joe probably doesn't want to talk about it. But back in the 80s, when we were both viable hockey people, we were working at Babson a lot at the Europa Cup and the Babson Women's Hockey School. And the Babson Women's Hockey School used to put 800 women a year in the summer through the camp.
Yeah,
I used to work with Joe there all the time, and you could kind of see it coming.
Yeah, no, it's great, and now if they can just increase the spectator interest, because the quality. I mean, I'm always amazed when I'll run into a contemporary of mine at a game, and they'll say to me, "Yeah, this is the first women's game I've ever been to." And I'm saying, "Really? Where you been?"
Yeah.
And they're amazed how good it is.
Yeah, I think it's growing great.
How about two women are going in the Hall of Fame this year? Natalie Darwitz out of the University of Minnesota and Chrissy Wendell-Pohl. They're both going in the Hockey Hall of Fame. I'm fortunate I'm on that committee, and I was going like this when they got voted in. I was so happy they were going in.
Especially after the drama with Darwitz and the Minnesota team last year.
Oh, Joe, that's a whole other that happens
in episode.
Joe, it happens in men's and women's. It's all the same.
Biting tongue here. But hey, let's switch to the men's game, Joe. And look, we've said it many times here on Campus, right? Just the way the college men's game has grown since you started off as a player for Crown. I mean, you look at it now and how many players from college hockey continue to go into the pros and be drafted, and just the recognition it's getting now must be amazing for you to have watched over the years.
Yeah, it's almost we've created a bit of a monster too, because now you have players who we used to make fun of basketball with their one and done, and now we're not that different, and 6 guys come in as freshmen. In the old days, that would be 24 seasons of college hockey that your fans could watch these guys. And now those same 6 guys might stay for a combined, 9 years or 8 years. But, it's great. It's a great game. The facilities are unbelievable. There's television coverage now, whether it's streaming or if you want to see it, you can see it. It's not like the days when we started out. I mean, the Frozen Four, my sophomore year at Harvard, we went to they didn't call it the Frozen Four, but we went to the finals in Syracuse, and they were actually changing the boards on Wednesday when we were practicing. They were putting new boards in. And so we had a practice where there were no boards between the blue lines. I don't mean no glass, no boards.
Wow.
So you hit a guy with a wide wing pass and it skips and it's under the stands. All right, get another puck. We'll get another puck. We'll do it over again. And it was the Onondaga War Memorial County Arena or something.
So that's in Syracuse.
Yeah.
You've been there, Pierre.
People were there.
I used to hockey camp there too.
There you go. The thing I
Where
thought
hasn't this guy been?
when they played the national anthem, they had a fan hidden behind the flag so it would wave, I thought that's class. That's first class, And now 2 years from now, we're going to be in Vegas. So it has come a long way.
Yeah.
No, it really has. Jimmy, when I was coaching at St. Lawrence, our big rival was Clarkson, obviously, and we were really good back then. In the late 80s, we were as good as any team in the country. And Sean McDonough was actually hired by the alumni of Clarkson and St. Lawrence to broadcast the game around the world to their alumni.
Oh, wow.
And, Joe talked about streaming. I don't know if it was streaming or not back then, Joe. I don't even know if that word existed.
I think I was at that game because I remember being with Sean and some of the Lappin brothers and
that's
on those teams.
Yeah, that's when it was. So, they were up at Appleton Arena, and it was just amazing. And the feedback we got was huge. I remember our athletic director, the late Bob Sheldon, saying, "Boys, we got to keep this going because we're starting to get some traction here." I was like, "All right, Shelly, that's good."
Well, I hope that the changes in the NCAA can continue to make the Clarksons and the St. Lawrence's viable. There's so much money now involved in it. And, whether you have, they made the fourth coach from a volunteer to a paid coach. The big schools can pay that fourth coach like their others, and the other schools might have to make it a discount. And then the money thrown on the NIL, it's such a changing world. And we're an odd sport to begin with. We have a lot of schools that play each other in hockey that don't play each other in anything else. You don't see.
Yep.
I used to marvel when the bus would pull up on Merrimack College's campus and Notre Dame would get out. And this was before Merrimack went D1 in all their sports. And I'm thinking, wow, Notre Dame doesn't play Merrimack too often in other sports. And it's part of the beauty of our game. Yeah. But as the money plays a bigger role, I'm not the only one that's afraid of, will it create a bigger gap between the haves and have-nots? And it's a Friday night at Appleton or a Saturday night at RPI. I mean, that's part of our tradition and our culture, and we can't lose that.
No,
Jimmy, I want to take another step of what Joe said. Yeah. RPI at Houston Fieldhouse, when the big red freakout goes on, and I was there last year when Colgate played at RPI, and there's 6,500 people in there, and it's bedlam. That's as electrifying as any building in the country. But they got to find out. And to Joe's point, and he knows he's been to Big Red Freakout. That's a whole other entity. But every night's got to be Big Red Freakout. That's where we got to get with this thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Well, listen, Joe, we appreciate you taking the time. We're looking forward to Belfast for sure. I cannot wait.
Well, I'll show you around.
All right.
If you're really up for it, just follow the locals. But I don't know if Pierre, you can keep up with them.
My uncle spent a lot of time there, so I've got some tips. But
I'm hanging with you, Joseph. I'm hanging with you.
Senior citizen, I'll be your backup plan if you want to, dumb it down. Just follow the 72-year-old guy. Yeah.
Sounds good. Thanks, Joe. We appreciate it. Joe Bertagna joining us here on Campus Friday on the Eye Test and the Sick Podcast Network. And Pierre, interviews like that are why I love doing this job.
Well, first of all, he's a highly cerebral person.
Yep.
And I'm not kidding around. This book was presented to me the other day, and it's called Ring the Bell.
I didn't even know. Okay.
And it's written by Joe. And I'm just telling you, it's not just about hockey. People have to, and I'm sure a lot of people that are watching this understand, Joe called it The Troubles. I've read the book called The Troubles, and it's, the stuff that went on there in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s. I mean, tough stuff.
Yeah.
And just trying to take another step forward to bring everybody together. And Robert Fitzpatrick, who Joe talked about, they're trying to use hockey as a vehicle to bring everybody together in this community. Yeah. And that's why Jimmy, when we thought about this, I said, Jimmy, we got to get over there. We got to get over there because it's a selling point for the game, and it shows how hockey can change a whole community.
It's amazing.
It really can.
I just know, just from my family, how much, those people have been through over the years there. So it's great to see that they're uniting on and off the ice. I love it. I'm Pierre. I'm a kid in the candy jar right now. I'm telling you.
We're going to have rules for the road.
Don't you worry.
Players, don't
worry. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be great. And I love how it's picked up over here in North America where people are talking about it and there's buzz around it. So, Pierre.
Joe didn't sell himself enough, so I'm going to do it for you.
Okay, go ahead.
The amount of players Joe trained, and I'm talking about goalies, over time.
Yeah.
I don't even know if you can put a number on it. And I'm telling you, Jimmy, I wasn't kidding around. I did a lot of camps with Joe over the years. He was phenomenal. He was way ahead of most of the other guys.
I know.
When it came to goalie development, he was really good at it. And I was blown away. Like, it's hard to stand on your skates for 8 to 12 hours a day. It is. I know people probably laugh, say, oh, you're on the ice. It's no big deal. It's hard to stand out there for 8 to 12 hours a day, and Joe would do that. No problem.
I'm trying to look him up. They don't have it on Hockey DB. Oh, no, there they do. Okay, I thought I was right. Yeah, so he was goalie coach the year they made it all the way to the final, the first time the lights went out, 87-88 with the Boston Bruins. And I remember him. I thought I remembered him working with Reggie Lemlin, so that makes sense.
Yeah, he was.
Yep.
He was. He worked.
Stuff. All right. Let's go over to the Q&A. But before we do, we want to tell you about Betway. Lots of college football on tomorrow and lots of pro football, of course, on Sunday. Pierre, sorry about your Giants last night. I thought it was actually they played pretty well. I think they
played hard.
They played hard, and they have 2 weeks straight now, so they'll get there. All right, let me tell you about Betway. It's a leading, not this year, but is a leading global online betting and gaming brand. Follow your gut instinct. Go with Betway. Go to betway.com or scan that QR code right in front of you there if you're watching here on YouTube, and you can join the action. You must be 18 plus. You must play responsibly. And as Pierre said, don't bet on preseason hockey. That's playing responsibly. All right, and let's talk about Manta, who's going to help us on our trip to Northern Ireland. They have the only mask designed and optimized for deepest possible sleep in any environment. 100% blackout for deeper sleep, infinitely adjustable for personalized fit, and absolute comfort. Visit mantasleep.ca and use the code SICKET, that's SICKET, for 10% off. And what else? We got one more, I think. Nope, I think that's it. No homage. I guess that's it for today. Let's get to the Q&A. What do we have?
You forgot one. You forgot one important one.
Well, the biggest one, the Friendship 4.
Yes, go ahead.
As we discussed, we will be going over there the last week in November, and Pierre and I will be broadcasting live from the Hart Bar right in downtown Belfast, right near the arena, and then we'll get you ready for the Friendship 4. And as we go into that, we will continue to have connected guests to the tournament, whether it be Sarah Stanton from Cara Travel or any of the coaches from the schools participating. We will have you covered for that. So looking forward to that. And by the way, you can go right now. I'm glad you brought this up here. caragrouptravel.com/friendship4. You go right there. You can find out all the information. I think you can still get some tickets, it looks like. If you want to go over and meet us there, we'd love to have you. So check it out. Let's get to the Q&A. Alex Ivanovsky, looking back, does it seem remarkable to you that Nick Lidstrom was able to do so great defensively without really being a mean player? I think the vast majority of top D-men had that, except him. It's an interesting point, Pierre. What do you think?
I usually agree with Alex a ton. So
I had a feeling Nick's a little meaner than maybe all of us thought at home.
Oh, it has nothing to do with me, and I'm going to disagree with him on this one. And I'm going to use the 1997 Stanley Cup Final when Eric Lindros and the Legion of Doom are running around and bashing everybody. Mm-hmm. And Scotty Bowman said, we're not going to play our physical guys against them. We're going to play our smart, slick guys against them and frustrate them. Mm-hmm. So their matchup was Larry Murphy on the right and Nick Lidstrom on the left. And it drove those guys nuts because they were expecting to get pushed back.
Right. And they were taking – I remember the beginning of that series, too. They were taking bad penalties.
Because they got crazy. Were looking for it. Yeah. All you'd have is like the little surgical stick of Nicky or the little surgical stick of Larry. Or Larry would get the puck deep in his own zone and flip it out into the neutral zone. They couldn't establish a forecheck. So I'm not surprised by what Nicky did. I saw him playing Vasteros before he came over, to Detroit. He was an amazing pick. The late Nick Polano and Kenny Holland were the guys that really – and Håkan Anderson, to be fair. Mm-hmm. Those were the three guys that were instrumental in getting Nicky. But it was the brilliance of Scotty Bowman in 97. I'm just telling you because he called me before the final. And he said, look, we had a lot of success together. You ran my D. What do you think of this idea? I said, it's a great idea, but you think it's going to work? He goes, I think it's going to be amazing. And I'm watching the games and I'm going,
he's worked 4 games straight.
He's amazing. And it did work. He was so
one of the biggest upsets. Yeah. Yeah, that was amazing.
That's for Alex, though. But I will tell you one more Nick Lidstrom story. It was a Chicago-Detroit playoff game.
Mm-hmm.
And Detroit was in a bad spot in this series.
Yep.
I remember during a TV timeout in old Joe Louis, Nicky came right by me, and he was never really loud, but he banged the boards. He says, "We're okay." He'd skate up and down the bench. "We're okay. We're okay." And eventually I think they ended up coming back and winning that game. But I saw a whole other side of him because he was so quiet and so polite. He wasn't mean, but he was amazingly durable, and he was so good. He was so good.
One of the best. So smooth. That would be the word I always think of.
So good.
All right, next question. Gabriel Lamb, is there any update on Swayman? Gabriel, it's funny you say that. I've got some stuff, but I'm not comfortable saying anything right now. I'm going to keep investigating what I got and see where I'm at on Monday. Maybe I'll have something for you there. Basically, from what I heard, it's status quo right now.
Jimmy, can they put that back up, that question?
Yeah.
Put that back up.
Put that question up about Swayman?
Yeah. If you can. If they can. From Gabriel. Please put it back.
There we go.
Gabriel, thank you for doing that. You see the little thing on the
avatar. I love it.
That's
You're going to see that everywhere.
Thank you, Gabriel. Thank you very much. That means a lot. Really classy. Thanks, Gabriel.
Yeah. I'm seeing that a lot around the rinks right now, Pierre. It's great.
Yep.
All right, next question. John Smith. Gents, Jack Guy looked like an AHL defenseman last night. How bad does a somewhat established player have to be in the preseason to lose a spot? I'm using him as an example. I know he's an NHLer.
Remember last year, John, when he took a bad penalty or a couple bad penalties in a game, and Marty St. Louis benched in that game, and they sent him right down in the American Hockey League. So in his case, he needs to re-energize, refocus. I'm sure they're probably talking to him today. But he is an important part of that team because of what he brings. He's the nuclear deterrent in a division and a conference where a lot of the games are going to be physical. So you can't overreact to one game, but you're going to have to reprogram him, and I'm sure they will.
Yep. All right, next question. Max R. Atlanta and Houston have big populations, but they already have teams in other major leagues. Utah, for example, doesn't have an NFL team. I think they might soon. Wouldn't it be better to focus on markets like that?
So TV matters too.
Great point, Max. Great point. Yeah, TV is the big thing.
Too, and Atlanta's a huge TV market, and Houston, I think, is number 5 or 6 in the country. Utah's nowhere near that size, but I beg to differ because Utah, Salt Lake City, has Brigham Young University football, and they have University of Utah, and they have Utah State. They have 3 Division I football teams in one state, and that eats up a lot of disposable income.
Yep.
So, just to be fair here, I totally get the point from Max, but I'd be shocked if there's not a team in Atlanta, and I'll be shocked if there's not a team in Houston. I'll be shocked.
I agree. All right, next question. Randy Workman. What's up, Randy? What advice do coaches give the veterans before the preseason camp? What do they expect from the veterans?
Do you want to go there, Jimmy?
No, you can go up here. I've never coached in the NHL.
Well, it depends on what the veteran season was like the year before. Usually you don't have to really motivate most of the guys. They take care of it themselves. But there's some guys where their role might change. So I'm not going to give a name of a player, but I had a player whose roles changed significantly. He was going from being a top power play guy to a secondary power play guy, but also going to be a number 1 penalty kill guy. Mm-hmm. So you're just making sure they understand without them feeling alienated from the process. Communication, again, learning this from Scotty, communication and delegation, so important. And so that's what you try to do with your veterans without making them feel like, oh boy, am I getting to the, taken to the principal's office again? Am I going to get in trouble again? So you make it fun for them. And more, if something like that happens, what I just talked about, you show them tape, all good stuff, nothing bad. Right. Make them feel empowered and better, because even though a little bit of their responsibility has been taken away, they've been given another huge responsibility. Mm-hmm. It's the important part of it.
Pierre, one question I have too, you'll go into a preseason. I imagine, coaches kind of haven't mapped out who's going to play where in terms of veterans, young guys, or a mix, so to speak. Have you been in situations where, maybe you had a veteran that was underachieving, so to speak, and maybe you're like, okay, we got to give him one more game to really see where he's at, or vice versa. You have a young kid Well, you didn't expect them to be so good. Let's push them in for one more game and see if we really have something.
Both. I've had both situations as an assistant and as a head coach. It's a great question, Jimmy. I like the fact that you asked it. I've had both. Well, I'll tell you one, McEachran. When McEachran came from the 92 Olympic team to Pittsburgh, I was running all the practices, and Sean came in, and I'll be totally frank, he was underwhelming the first practice. He wasn't ready for that. And I had him in, different camps in Boston when he was a younger player, when he was playing at Matignon High School.
Yep.
And so, I talked to him, and he would never look back, and he was a very important player. People forget how important he was in the Cup run in 92. He was really important, but we could have quit on him after the first practice, but nobody was prepared to do that. Yeah. And then I've had older guys, who are near the end, and you try to make sure you just look after them. And the number one thing with an older player, I find this really important. I don't know how much young coaches do it today.
Right.
Recognize how long their career has been, recognize how many good things they've done over the course of that long career, and treat them with respect at the end. Treat them with unbelievable respect at the end.
Yeah, you have to.
They've earned that.
Yep.
They've earned it.
That's a great point. All right, next question. Joe, question. We see some of the Habs fans want Kapanen in Montreal and have put pressure on a trade involving Evans and Dvorak. Don't you think trading Newhook and Barron for a star right D is better?
Well, first of all, they're not trading Newhook because the chemistry they have right now with Laine, Bach, and Newhook. That they're not. I'll be absolutely shocked, and I'll be the first person to apologize if they trade him. But they're not, I believe they're trading him. Dvorak's contract's hard to move. Very difficult to move.
We discussed this the other day. Yeah,
it's unfortunate, but I can tell you, I was involved with another team before Montreal got him, and we could have had him. And I said, once you get that, you own that contract. You cannot move that contract. And so the contract is too big for what he does. And doesn't mean he's a bad player. He's not. He's a useful player.
Right.
But being paid as a first and second liner when he's more as a third liner. So that's tough. And so I would be shocked. Barron requires waivers. So a year ago, when he didn't require waivers, he was more valuable to trade.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because he could put them back and forth between the farm team and the NHL team. Now you can't because he requires waivers to go down.
So I'm with you. I think they're stuck with both right now. And I don't mean stuck in a bad way, but just stuck with the contracts.
I think Barron's going to play in their top 6 right now.
I do too. I've really been impressed with him since he came to Montreal. Yeah. Next question. Alex Ivanowski, how real is the fear of a rebuild and everything that comes with it in the NHL front offices, ownership boxes, and even journalists who cover the team? I feel like I'm seeing that fear in some teams. That's a great point, Alex. It's real. It's definitely real, especially in a cap era, I imagine, Pierre.
So the most courageous team I've seen when it comes to that, the New York Rangers. When Jeff Gorton and John Davidson and Glenn Sather penned a letter to their season ticket holders and said,
that's when they traded Nash, right?
We're stripping this down.
Yep.
And this is what we're doing, and this is our plan. And I was like, whoa. I mean, I lived in the area. I lived in New Canaan, Connecticut, and everybody there's a Ranger fan. And I go to my golf course, and people in the summertime, people would be like, what the heck? And I said, actually, I think it's going to work.
It's great.
I think actually it's going to work. And it did. What you've got to be careful of when you do it, and Alex's question is perfect, by the way.
Yep.
What you have to be careful of when you do a rebuild is managing expectation. Undersell and overdeliver. Let the actions of the players and the coaches on the ice dictate rather than you as a management person or an ownership person telling everybody how great you are. You don't need to do that. No. Let the action and undersell it. Undersell. So that everybody's kind of loose when they come to the rink and they're having fun because they're watching all these good young players get better.
Yeah.
Problem where rebuilds go south, I can tell you, it's very simple. You can trace it. Go look at it. The owner gives you the backing, and then after 2 years, he hears all this negative energy in the community. So he starts getting mad at the GM, and the GM starts getting mad at the coach, and the coach gets mad at everybody, and all of a sudden everybody's alienated in the process, and it blows up.
Yep.
That's when it happened. I'm telling you.
I think that the most key thing you said, though, Pierre, undersell.
Undersell.
That is the key. How many times have we seen it blow up in their faces when they say, "Oh, we're here, we're ready"?
Yeah,
No, you're not. So, all right, next question. Randy Workman, Flames. I really excited about the prospect Matt V. Gradine.
Yeah.
Has Pierre seen him play?
I have. They should be excited. There are a bunch of prospects there, actually, they should be excited about. Gridden's one of them. We talked about Matt Coronado yesterday, and there's more than that, too. I mean, Dustin Wolf, I still consider him a prospect in goal. So they got a lot of prospects to be excited about. Now, again, we just talked about the rebuild. They're going through a rebuild.
Don't get excited.
It's about managing the expectation. And, Jimmy, we've talked about a lot. Nazem Kadri's one of those players. Rasmus Anderson's another one of those players. They traded Markstrom. So now you got to manage the expectation. I remember we had Eric Francis, our good friend, on last year.
That was great. Yep.
And we were talking about Dustin Wolf. And I said to Eric, and I wasn't being mean, I said, I don't know if he's big enough to be an everyday starter as a goalie in the league. Like, it's hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody's UC Saros.
Yeah.
It's hard to do that as a smaller guy. It really is. And we'll see whether Dustin can do it or not. Because when you see him without his equipment on, you're not a big man.
No.
He's not a big man.
You look at the majority of the goalies now. Oof. Big and tall. Next question. Alex Evanowski again. I was looking at this last night. Was there ever a more tougher or grittier modern team than the Anaheim Ducks in 2007? Just look at that roster. It's a who's who of toughness and grit. Well, it trickles right down from their GM, is what I'd say, Pierre.
Well, Brian Burke was a GM of that team, but you've got it. And Brian would be the first person to tell you. Randy Carlisle was the coach, but he'd be the first person to tell you that the late Brian Murray was a general manager before him. He did a really good job, along with David,
the table.
Yeah, along with David McNabb, who was an assistant GM there. They did a really good job getting players for their organization. And, Sammy Paulson and I remember he's the toughest Swede coming out of Red Deer, Alberta. Well, Sammy wasn't from Red Deer, Alberta, but that's what they would talk about with him. And, I remember, tiny little Andy McDonald out of Colgate University, and what a player he was. He does a lot of good work, by the way, now in St. Louis, working with their youth hockey. They were a tough team. They had big people. They had some nasty. But here's the one on that. I will never forget Timo Solani. And you can go look it up, the interview we did together.
Yep, I remember it.
We won the cup, and I was this close to breaking down. Like, he was crying, and I'd known Timo forever, and Jimmy, it was this close to breaking down on national TV. He had me going pretty good. But the big thing they had there, they had the defense.
Mm.
They had the defense, and it started with Pronger, Niedermeyer, Sean O'Donnell. They had, Francois Beauchemin. Like, they had, Kent Huskins. They had a defense. Like, I remember off the top of my head, like it was yesterday. It's 2007. Yeah. Jimmy, like, they had the defense. They were stout. They couldn't
get through.
Nasty.
Yeah, I know.
There were no nice guys there, even though they had a lot of nice guys. There were no nice guys.
Yeah. They were the way that every team, again, is trying to build their teams for playoffs now, Pierre.
Berkey set the tone there. I give Brian a lot of credit, but to his credit, he deserves a lot of credit, but he never forgot the job that the late Brian Murray did getting players. And that, I think that's something that's lost too in this generation of management people.
Mm-hmm.
More times than not, when you're new GM, you're brought in because something fouled up.
Yep.
And so you're getting your opportunity. It's really important to acknowledge the people that came before you.
Yeah, predecessors are huge for sure. Yeah. All right, next question. John Smith. I heard that the Habs save percentage was like 0.897 last year, 18th in the league. If they jacked it up to 905, coupled with a potentially improved PP, how many more wins do you think that would lead to?
Go ahead. Do you have a number?
7 to 10?
7 to 10.
Yeah.
So it'd be 14 to 20 points in the standings.
Yeah.
They
take that.
I will be, if the Canadiens power, I'm going to say it right now, Jimmy, remember,
I know.
23. If it's not 23% or better, I will be shocked this year. I'll be absolutely shocked this year.
I just wrote it down. We got it up here. We got it. Yeah, I mean, I don't see how it doesn't improve here. Like, you know, based on the progress that we saw that team make at the end of the year and the stuff the areas they started to mature in, and now with more weapons, I think the sky's the limit right now. So, all right, next question.
I agree. I think we're good.
We good? All right.
I think we're good.
Good
Hey,
stuff.
by the way, how about Joe? Make sure Joe Bertagna gets this. He was outstanding. Like,
a lot of great comments in the
what
comments
makes the show
section
so
about that.
fun. Like, there's a hockey lifer.
Yeah.
He's done it all. He's been a player. He was the first women's coach at Harvard. He was a sports information director at Harvard. He was a commissioner of the ECAC. He was a commissioner of Hockey East. He's been at every single.
And he's seen it from all sides.
He's seen it
you know
all.
what I mean? And now look at him now. He's a writer.
Bruins.
Yeah.
He's a coach for the Boston Bruins.
I know.
I mean, so he's done a lot.
Yeah.
And the way I'm just a fan. I guess because I worked with him and I really like him, but that's what you want. You want guys like that in hockey.
Yeah. And you know what? What he says, though, Pierre, I mean, the game's lucky to have it. And I think when he says something, he said some pretty interesting stuff, I thought. It will carry because people respect his opinion and they understand how much he knows what college hockey needs. He loves the improvements, but he also wants to see them maintain their roots.
Can you go on your computer, because you're the one that gives me all this intel, and tell me what Northeastern is doing against Penn State right now?
I can do
that. It was 1-0 Northeastern, and I think we have a lot of Northeastern viewers.
Yeah, no problem. It is 2-1 now, Penn State, with 2:39 left in regulation.
There you go. So it's a game.
That's a good game.
It's a good game.
Any of these televised anywhere, Pierre?
I think they are, but I just don't know where.
All right, I'll find out.
I apologize. I mean, I'm doing a lot of studying, but I haven't seen the TV.
You're following the scores too.
I've been following all the scores, and I've been calling a lot of people, and I'm having a blast doing this. And I think On Campus Friday was one of the best ideas you ever came up with. It was brilliant.
Thanks, Pierre. Appreciate it. I enjoy it. I love that we're helping the game too. Yeah.
It was really good. And, I think, and I'll break it for our fans out there, I'm going to be doing a significant amount of work media-wise for the ECAC this year. Mm-hmm. Whether it's their Monday morning highlight packs that they're going to put online for the women and the men, or doing conversations with coaches or doing conversations with players. And that's just one step. And, obviously, I think most people that watch this, my son plays at Northeastern now, so I'm going to be watching all of their stuff and all of Hockey East, which is going to be – Hockey East is crazy, by the way.
It really is going to be a great
game. No, it's like the balance in that league is going to be – in every game is going to be a playoff game.
Yeah, I know. You look at all the pro prospects or potential pro prospects on each team, it's unreal.
It's going to – I will tell you that I prepared to make this prediction right now. They have 6 teams rated in the top 20 in the country, and they might have 7 before it's over.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you, Jimmy.
I'm with you on that, Pierre. It's unreal.
It's unbelievable what's going to be in Hockey East this year.
Yeah, and for our listeners, if you don't, if you want to learn more about college hockey and you enjoy these on-campus, go to the games. If you're in New England, if you're in the Northeast, go to these games or in the ECAC games.
Yeah,
every weekend. They're cheap tickets. Go.
If you're in Ottawa, it's an hour and a half to St. Lawrence or Clarkson.
I know.
If you're in Montreal, it's an hour and a half to UVM. It's longer to get to New Hampshire. It's longer to get to Maine, obviously, depending where you are in Quebec. But I would say that, and I'm, me, I just tell it the way it is.
Yep.
Go watch a game at Alfond Arena in Maine.
Oh yeah,
is an unbelievable experience.
That's where the women are playing today, right?
To go watch a game, at Matthews Arena. To go watch a game at Conti Forum at BC, Matthews Arena at Northeastern. To go
By the way, it's the last chance for them to do that too, Pierre. This is the last year at Matthews Arena. So
most games are sold out. The BC sold out every single ticket for the season.
Yep.
So it's unbelievable.
Denver did, obviously, national champs, but they did as well.
Yep. So it's
great.
It's great.
Good stuff. All right. Well, we want to thank Joe Bertagna for joining us here on the Eye Test. What an amazing guest. We'll have to get him on again. And of course, I'm sure we'll have him on when we're in Belfast, Pierre. We'll make that happen.
Oh, yeah, no, he'll be on.
We'll get him on from the Heart Bar in Belfast for the Friendship Floor. Thank our great production crew back in Montreal. Special Rosa appearance in the production room.
We need Shane or we got Rosa.
We got Rosa and Sammy back in Montreal. Thanks to you, Pierre. I'm Jimmy Murphy. We will talk to you on Monday on the Eye Test on the Sick Podcast Network.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.